Changing by Lisa Hurcum. It had been his shoes that had first attracted Lucy. They were proper shoes, made from leather with long laces, dark brown in colour and polished, so that they had a warmth to them that neglected shoes didn't have. Lucy thought that a man that treated his shoes so well would be a man that knew how to love. Adam liked her homemade knitwear. He could appreciate the time it took to knit a cardigan. He liked that they weren't perfect, and that he could see where she had dropped a stitch or two. These little holes made him think that a woman who didn't mind imperfection would be a woman who knew how to love. Lucy and Adam enjoyed each other's company. They talked easily, and their topics ranged from books, music, and politics to celebrities and daytime TV. Neither were experts in all these areas, and occasionally one felt the need to educate the other. But these were generally good-natured discussions, and there was rarely bad feeling or irritation. After 6 months of living apart, Lucy and Adam decided to move in together. Adam's flat was bigger and more convenient for the station, but he shared it with his brother, and all three felt that this was not the best start to their cohabitation. Lucy's flat was small and untidy, too far out to be called convenient for anything, but it did have a garden and a kitchen table. She hadn't wanted to give it up, and was pleased to think that it would become their home. She promised she would make an effort to pick things up from the floor, and he promised not to mind if she didn't. And so his books took up space on the shelves, and his clothes squeezed into drawers and cupboards. Lucy looked forward to coming home to a cooked meal, long evenings with a bottle of wine, and perhaps even a candle. Adam discovered that he liked sharing a bath. He didn't mind the tap end, or the fact that the towels were always damp. They both enjoyed Sundays when they stayed in bed till the afternoon and ate cold pizza from the night before, straight out of the box, sometimes smearing the sheets with tomato sauce and pepperoni when passion overtook them. And so the months passed. Lucy got used to not being able to find anything. She tried not to mind that Adam liked to reorganize the kitchen. She understood that his idea of tidy was that things were put away, out of sight. She missed the jumble of objects, but could see that his way had its merits. Adam got used to picking up last night's wine glass from the pile of books and CDs next to the armchair. He tried not to mind that Lucy's system of putting anything away defied all logic to anyone but herself. He missed the order and cleanliness of his old home, but could see that cozy and relaxed had its merits. Lucy joined a gym that had a special offer for Sunday mornings, and Adam took up jogging. Both decided pizzas were an unhealthy dietary choice and could do without them. And so the months passed. Quite often one or the other had to work late. Meals were more often taken alone in front of the television than shared at the table. Conversations were most likely to be about who was going to pick up milk and whether it was all right to eat the rice that was 2 years past its sell-by date. Lucy found it annoying that Adam polished his shoes at the table while she was trying to work, and Adam found the pile of knitwear dumped on top of his work jacket infuriating. They rarely discussed their feelings, but the atmosphere became thick with them. Both began to feel lighter when away from the other. And so the months passed. Lucy had noticed the cat some days before it made its way into the garden. It had sat on top of the wall, shielded somewhat by the chaos the runner beans had made. Its serious face had peered through the leaves, its markings round the eyes just visible enough to look like spectacles. It had shied away from Lucy's outstretched hand, but hadn't run away. It was there the next day, and the next. Lucy hadn't decided whether to tell Adam about it or not, but he ended up pointing the cat out to her, so she realized it hadn't been her secret anyway. It sat day after day on top of the wall, not coming in, but not running away. On the 5th day, the cat turned its face into Lucy's hand and purred. This Simple action brought tears to Lucy's eyes, which alarmed her. It made her wish Adam were there to see the depth of her emotion and loneliness. And then she chided herself for being an exhibitionist. She gingerly stroked the cat's face and neck, tickling it under the chin. The purring grew louder, a deep guttural sound that seemed far too big to come from this little cat. The purring wrapped itself around Lucy and hugged her. When Adam went into the garden on the 6th day, the cat jumped down from the wall and wound itself around his legs. He could feel the weight of the cat push against his calves, and its tail tickled his fingertips as he bent down to stroke it. Adam was taken aback by the strength of emotion the animal had produced, and was alarmed to feel tears forming in the corner of his eyes. He wished Lucy were there to see his sensitivity, but then he chided himself for being shallow. The cat wove in and out of his legs with a rhythm that was soothing and comforting. Each day, the cat would interact a little more. By the end of the 2nd week, it was coming into the kitchen and lapping at a saucer of milk, and after a month, it had taken to sitting at one of the kitchen chairs as if expecting a meal to be laid before it. It liked to be stroked on its tummy and have kisses on its nose. Both Adam and Lucy were besotted, and the cat seemed to like each of them in return. Eventually, it was decided that the cat needed a name. Not being experts, neither Lucy nor Adam were sure if the cat was a boy or a girl, and so Marley was chosen as a suitable name, regardless of gender. Marley had more or less moved in by this time and was eating regular meals and sometimes sleeping on their bed. For a while, Lucy had kept an eye out for missing cat posters along her street, but none were taped onto lampposts as far as she could see. Adam felt that perhaps he should put up a found poster, a picture of Marley looking fed and cared for, and their telephone number displayed underneath. But he hadn't got round to it yet, and he was aware that he was putting it off in case someone actually called. And so the months passed. Marley was aware of his rising status in the household. He was fond of both the humans, and was rather touched that Lucy got so much comfort from burying her face in his neck, and he appreciated that they let him sleep in the bed, stretched out between them like a small child. He tried to give his affection and attention evenly, as he could see that it caused an uneasy atmosphere if he spent too long with one or the other. He tried not to mind that both were actually rather demanding, but he took to hiding in the garden when it became a bit much. Both Lucy and Adam were enthralled by the slightest catty thing. Each could be sure of a smile from the other if they recalled an impressive leap or a lazy stretch. As pretty much all other topics had run dry, the only thing they talked about was Marley. Marley couldn't be sure, but he felt that this was perhaps unusual amongst humans. He didn't mind that their lives revolved around him, but he did feel a certain sense of responsibility. One night, Adam reenacted a particularly spectacular tail chase. It involved running very quickly in circles and banging his head on the table. Marley felt that Adam's lack of tail made the whole thing ridiculous, but Lucy seemed enchanted. The next night, Lucy reenacted a rather lazy sprawl in a patch of afternoon sun. She stretched out on her back and rubbed her head on the rug, arms and legs akimbo. It lacked the elegance that Marley had achieved, but she had caught a certain something. After a while, Adam and Lucy took to greeting each other by rubbing faces. When Adam spotted a drop of gravy on Lucy's chin, he licked it off. This was so appreciated that morning routine started to involve each grooming the other for at least 5 minutes before leaving for work. Evenings were spent curled on cushions. Purring was more difficult than they had anticipated, and the sound they emitted was not totally convincing, but it was cheering. And so the months passed. By now, they'd become so familiar with feline habits that they no longer looked to Marley for inspiration. Whole days would pass without either Lucy or Adam stroking or praising him. Marley felt rather affronted. After all, it was he who had inspired Adam to trim his toenails with his teeth, and for Lucy to clean out Adam's ears with her tongue. Lucy and Adam got on better without words, They each had shared human expectations of their relationship, and both were liberated. They gave up wearing clothes. Lucy's knitwear was abandoned in forgotten heaps, and Adam's shoes gathered dust. Their lack of clothes did not produce desire. They huddled together for warmth. They licked and cleaned. When Adam brought a small mouse into the house, holding it carefully between his teeth so as to give a live gift to Lucy, she accepted it gracefully. She played with it for a minute or so, letting it run from one open palm to another before biting it in two. Neither wanted to eat it, but the game had been fun. And so the months passed. Neither Lucy nor Adam had left the house and garden for a long time. Work had been abandoned without explanation, and phone and email messages ignored. What need did they have of these things now? Everything they needed was in easy reach for the adept hunter. They ate what they caught without the fuss of cooking. Lucy proved skilled at catching the birds that flew unwittingly into the garden, and Adam had a taste for the fish from next door's pond. They shared sometimes, but each knew the warning growl of the other and didn't come too close when they heard it. They both slept for much of the day. Lucy often took the sunniest spot on the rug in front of the window, and Adam was particularly fond of the kitchen table. Marley watched all this with a calm curiosity. He regretted the loss of 3 meals a day and a warm bed to sleep in, but felt he had been instrumental in the change in Lucy and Adam's lives. He could see they were happier, and that it had been his doing. He knew they wouldn't notice his absence, and so left early one morning when Lucy and Adam were curled together on top of the duvet. The click of the cat flap caused Adam's ear to twitch, but he slept on.
You, finding life rather dull, dreaming again of exotic places, wishing you were somewhere else?